Hi, my name is Yuji. Welcome to my channel.
The first alert came in like a polite cough. A yellow banner on a monitor inside Listening Station Hermes. An array of dishes and quantum receivers buried beneath a salt flat no one visited, unless they had to. A warning tone softened by design, because scientists hated alarms and engineers hated anything that made them look up. Anomalous coherent source detected. Dr. Mira Kade stared at the text for 2 full seconds before she trusted it. Most of the universe was noise. Most of the universe was honest about being noise. This was not. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't arrive with the satisfying pulse of a broadcast beacon or the tidy cadence of a spacecraft transponder. It arrived as structure clean, self-similar, repeating in a way that felt less like sound and more like intention. Mira's first thought was equipment error. Her second thought was worse. Someone had built a joke so precise it could fool an entire facility. She pulled up the raw streamlines of numbers rolled down the screen. Spectral density graphs bloomed in panes. Phase correlations stacked like transparent sheets. The signal didn't drift. It didn't shimmer. It sat in the data like it owned the space. "Where's it coming from?" Jonah Reese asked, sliding into the chair beside her. Jonah was the station's systems engineer, tall, sleep-deprived, and allergic to miracles. Mira didn't answer immediately. She rotated the sky map, overlaid the triangulation. Alpha Centauri not near it, not behind it, from it. The room seemed to contract around the name. "Say you're kidding," Jonah said. Mira shook her head. Someone at the far end of the lab let out a laugh that sounded like relief with teeth. Alpha Centauri was close in astronomical terms, 4 and a bit light years, and close was dangerous. Close meant the possibility of response. Close meant a new era of the species that discovered the signal, the day everything in our history became a prologue to a larger story. Mira's hands moved on their own. She cloned the data stream to an isolated partition, then to a cold storage node that wasn't connected to anything but a physical cable with a manual switch. Jonah watched her, brows tight. "You're acting like it bites." "It might," she said. He gave her the look he reserved for sentences that didn't belong in a lab. Mira didn't care. She ran a compression analysis, then a harmonic decomposition, then a comparative scan against every known artificial signal pattern humans had ever produced. Nothing matched. The signal wasn't just coherent. It was layered, not multiple channels exactly. More like an object seen from different angles. Mira felt a familiar sensation creep up the back of her neck. Curiosity. The oldest hunger humans had. She zoomed in on a repeating segment. For a moment, her eyes couldn't decide what they were looking at. The segment sat on the screen as a block of numbers, but her brain kept trying to turn it into something else, something with shape, a pattern behind the pattern. She blinked hard. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, Mira, not today. We stay rigorous." Jonah leaned closer. "What's wrong?" "Nothing, it's just clean." He nodded, unconvinced. A message arrived in the station's internal chat. "Night shift, we seeing this." "Night shift looks like it's adjusting." Mira frowned. "Adjusting how?" She typed back. There was a pause, then night shift phase drift corrected itself. Like it noticed our filter, Jonah stared at the message. "That's impossible," he said. Mira didn't disagree. She toggled the filter off, then back on. The signal's phase relationship remained perfect, too perfect. Like a performer who didn't just keep time, but anticipated the conductor. Her skin tightened. The facility lights hummed softly overhead. Vents breathed, machines whispered. The universe did not whisper back until now. Mira stood. "We're escalating. Full team now." Jonah's hand caught her wrist. "Wait," he said. "What's your read, honestly?" Mira looked at the data one more time. In the scrolling numbers, her brain insisted it saw an outline. Something slender and vertical, like a shadow standing just behind the screen. She forced herself to look away. "My honest read," she said. "It's a message. And it knows it's being read." Jonah's grip loosened. They called in the others. Captain Inez Park arrived first. Security liaison posture like a closed door. Dr. Selim followed, cognitive scientist, eyes bright with the kind of interest that got people killed in old stories. They gathered around Mira's station. Mira played the first decoded layer, not translation, not content, just the most basic reconstruction. A waveform rendered as sound, the room filled with a tone so low it was almost a vibration. Then it shifted, not randomly, not musically, like language. Selim's smile widened. "Oh," he breathed. "Oh, that's beautiful." Inez didn't smile. "Protocol?" she asked. Jonah spoke before Mira could. "Air gap everything, no external connections, no personal devices, no recordings leaving the room." Inez nodded once. "Do it." Mira swallowed. They moved into the clean room, white walls, no windows, controlled lighting, every surface chosen to minimize reflections because reflections were a kind of data leak in a place like this. Mira sat at the console. Jonah stood behind her, arms folded as if he could block what was coming by sheer skepticism. Selim paced. Inez watched everyone. Mira began translating. She didn't try to turn it into words yet. First she mapped the structure. Repetitions, breaks, nested patterns. The way you studied a language before you dared to speak it. The signal yielded without resistance. It wanted to be understood. That was the part that made Mira's stomach turn. Hours passed. Then, just as Mira's eyes began to blur, the first line emerged, not as a sentence, but as an intent so clear her brain supplied the grammar. "We are sorry." Mira went still. Selim stopped pacing. Jonah's breath caught. Inez leaned forward. Mira's fingers hovered over the keys. Another line resolved. "This is not a greeting." The lights in the clean room flickered once. Not a power surge, not a fault, just a single soft blink like a lid closing, then opening again. Mira felt it, a pressure at the edge of her perception, as if something had moved nearer. She kept her voice steady. "Continue," she said, and the signal obliged. "If you can read this, you have already started seeing." Jonah stepped back. Selim whispered, almost reverent, "What does that mean?" Mira stared at the line until the words began to feel like a shape that did not belong in language, a shape that for a fraction of a second she could almost picture. She shut her eyes. When she opened them again, the room looked the same, but she had this sudden, impossible certainty that something in the room was now aware of her, not watching, waiting. Mara didn't sleep. No one did. Not really. The station had beds and it had rules about rest, but rules were made for ordinary days. This was not an ordinary day, and the facility's air felt subtly different, charged with the static of attention. They moved the translation effort into a tighter protocol. Jonah established a hard air gap. The decoding system was isolated from the station network, which was isolated from the outside world, which was isolated from everything that could ever be called safe again. Inez confiscated personal devices. She didn't apologize. Selim protested, politely. "You want me to work without my reference library? You want the world to live without yours?" Inez replied. Selim blinked, then gave a small nod as if conceding a point in an academic debate. Mara watched him and felt a chill. Some minds treated danger as a puzzle. She understood that impulse. She just didn't trust it by morning. The message had expanded, not longer, deeper. Each segment they decoded unlocked another layer beneath it, like a document that only revealed its paragraphs when you proved you'd read the last one. Mara sat with her headphones on, eyes flicking between symbol maps and semantic scaffolds. The alien language, if it could be called a language, didn't operate on sound or sight alone. It felt like it used relations as words. One concept would be defined by its distance from other concepts, meaning as geometry. Selim leaned over her shoulder. "It's cognition native," he murmured. "Not spoken. Not written. Structured to fit a mind." Jonah scowled. "That's comforting," he said, which meant the opposite. Inez stood near the door, arms crossed. "Get to the point. What is it saying?" Mara swallowed. "The next block is context." "Context about what?" Mara stared at the glyph cluster on the screen. It wanted to resolve into a single, coherent picture. She resisted the impulse. "About them," she said. "Who sent it?" She began reading the translated intent aloud, keeping her tone clinical, like, if she sounded calm, the words would behave. They described themselves as a cooperative society, long-lived subterranean habitat, low-light environment. Mara paused, and this is the part that doesn't map cleanly. They described themselves as blind. Jonah frowned. Blind as in no eyes. Mara nodded, either no eyes or eyes that don't function. They don't have words for color. Their metaphors are pressure, warmth, vibration, texture. Selim's gaze sharpened. That would change everything about their culture, he said. No stars. No faces. No art, Jonah interrupted. Selim smiled faintly. Different art, he corrected. Not less. Inez's patience thinned. Why does any of this matter? Mira hesitated, because the next line mattered. because it made her feel like her brain was standing at the edge of a cliff looking down. She read it anyway. They say we became blind on purpose. Silence. Jonah laughed once, sharp. That's insane. Selim didn't laugh. What did they do it for? He asked. Mira scrolled. The message offered the answer like a surgeon offering a scalpel. We did it to stop seeing him. The word him was a compromise. The alien concept was larger. An entity, a category, a presence. Mira felt her mouth dry. Inez's hand hovered near her sidearm out of habit. Then she seemed to realize how useless that would be. Jonah stepped closer to the screen as if proximity would make it less supernatural. Okay, he said. Okay, they're blind. They blinded themselves. They're warning us. Fine. So what's the threat? A predator? A pathogen? Mira didn't answer. Selim did. This isn't about biology, he said softly. It's about perception. Mira scrolled again, the next line translated with terrible clarity. He does not come until he is seen. Jonah stared. That's a superstition, Jonah tried. A containment instruction, Inez said. A cognitive trigger, Selim whispered. Mira felt her heartbeat in her teeth. She looked at the line too long. For a moment the words stopped being words. They became an image, half-formed, unstable, something tall and thin and wrong, like a silhouette cut from the absence behind reality. Mira jerked her gaze away. Jonah noticed what, he asked. Mira forced herself to breathe. Nothing, she lied. Selim's eyes tracked her. He'd seen the flinch. Inez's voice was flat. We stop, she said. Mira's head snapped up. We can't, she said. Not now. If they sent this, it means they already failed. It means it's bait, Jonah said. Mira swallowed. The thought had been circling her own mind like a vulture. Selim tapped the screen with one finger, careful not to touch it like it could burn. Look at the structure, he said. It's designed to be read by minds like ours. It anticipates our cognition. That's deliberate. Inez's jaw clenched. Deliberate by whom Mira read the next block. It came through in fragments, like the translation engine didn't want to assemble it. We treed to contain knowledge of him. We failed. We tore out our sight to survive. Jonah exhaled. Jesus. Selim didn't correct him. Mira kept reading. Now we are sending this because it has found a way to leave. The words hung in the sterile air. Inez spoke first. Lock it down, she said. Full blackout protocol. Nobody leaves the station. Nobody talks about this outside the clean room. Jonah nodded. Mira's hands trembled slightly over the keys. Selim's voice was almost gentle. Too late, he said. Mira looked at him. What do you mean? Selim's eyes were bright. It says if we can read it, we've already started seeing, he replied. That implies transmission isn't the danger. He tapped his temple. Understanding as Mira felt the edge of perception pressure again, like something leaning closer. By noon, the station had become a fortress. Inez posted personnel at every door. She instituted a spoken-only policy in the clean room, no writing notes that could be photographed, no sketches, no diagrams that could survive outside someone's head. Mira hated it because she understood why. The alien's message was not just content, it was an arrangement of thought, an architecture that once entered, guided you toward a particular room, and in that room, something waited. They continued anyway, because the alternative was ignorance, and ignorance felt like surrender. Mira focused on the cultural block. The aliens described their world in ways that made her stomach twist. They spoke of pressure differentials, of temperature gradients, of the song of stone underfoot. Their cities were carved into the crust, their highways tuned like instruments. They navigated by resonance the way humans navigated by sight. They had no sky, or rather, they had one, but it meant nothing. To them, the universe had always been a rumor, until the day it wasn't. The message described their first encounter with him as an accident. Not a landing, not a war, a thought. A group of their researchers, curious, ambitious, had developed a new way to map their subterranean caverns. They built a system that translated resonance into a visual representation. Mira paused. Wait, Jonah said, hearing the change in her voice. They didn't have sight, but they built sight. Mira nodded slowly. Artificial sight, she said. A conversion layer, sound into image. Selim's mouth parted. That's inevitable, he said. Any intelligent species eventually tries to see what it can't. Inez's expression was grim. And that's when it happened, she said. Mira read, we made a window, he came through. The translation struggled around the next concept. Mira felt it as an unease behind her eyes. They say, she continued, voice tight, that the entity did not arrive as a ship or a creature. It arrived as a presence that only became real when the window's operator recognized it as real. Jonah frowned. That makes no sense. Selim lifted a hand. It makes sense if reality isn't a fixed stage, he said. If some things require a conscious observer to collapse into form. Jonah glared. Don't start, he said. Selim ignored him. Mira pushed forward. The aliens described the first witnesses. They looked into their new visual maps and saw something impossible in the geometry, an outline that shouldn't exist in any resonance data. At first, they assumed it was error. Then one of them said a sentence that changed everything. That is not part of the cave. And the moment they agreed on that fact, agreed it was real, the outline gained weight. It began to occupy space, not in the cave. In their world, Mira's throat tightened. Selim whispered. Consensus, he said. It needs agreement. Inez's voice was cold. So the defense is disagreement. Mira read the next line. Yes. Then but knowledge makes disagreement hard. Jonah rubbed his face, so they tried to keep it secret. Mira nodded. They banned discussion. They destroyed records. They killed researchers who tried to rebuild the window. Selim's jaw flexed. That never works, he said. Mira didn't need him to say it. The message continued. They drew him. They described him. They taught others to see him without the window. Mira felt a chill. Without the window? Jonah asked. Selim answered softly. Imagination, he said. Mira read. A mind can build its own window. The clean room seemed smaller. Mira could hear the vents, the hum of electronics. Jonah's breathing, and under it, barely perceptible, something like a low tone, so faint it could have been her blood. She didn't look at Selim. She was suddenly afraid of what she might see in his expression. Inez stepped closer to the console. Get us to the part where they blinded themselves, she said. Mira hesitated, then she scrolled. The message shifted from historical narration to instruction. Containment option 1. Remove the window, flailsed. Containment option 2. Remove prescription, flailsed. Containment option 3. Remove sight. Mira swallowed. The next line translated with brutal simplicity. Successful. Jonah let out a sound that was half laugh, half curse. No, he said, no, that can't be the solution. Selim didn't speak. Inez's eyes didn't leave the screen. It's a solution, she said. Mira felt something tighten inside her. Captain, she began. Inez cut her off. I'm not saying we do it, she said. I'm saying we take it seriously. Mira's hands were cold. She read the next line. We did not remove our eyes to avoid fear. We did it to starve him. Jonah looked at Mira. What does that mean? Mira kept reading. Each witness makes him more complete. Each seer teaches him a new way to be. Selim's voice was almost reverent. It learns, he said. Mira felt the edge of perception pressure swell, like something hearing its own name. She stared at the screen. The alien concept for the entity, its not name, sat in the middle of the text like a pit. Her mind tried to fill it, to imagine it, to see. Mira slammed her palm down and killed the monitor. The screen went black. In the sudden reflection, she saw the clean room behind her. And for the briefest instant, so brief it could have been a trick of nerves, she saw something standing where the light didn't reach. Tall. Still waiting. Mira's breath stopped. Then Jonah's hand reached over and flipped the monitor back on. The reflection vanished. Mira turned on him. What are you doing? She snapped. Jonah stared at her, confused. We can't work in the dark, he said. Mira's mouth opened. No words came out that wouldn't make it worse. Selim watched them both, and in his eyes Mira saw the most dangerous thing in the room. Not fear, not anger, understanding. The first death wasn't cinematic. There was no scream, no blood, no collapsing body caught in the arms of a friend. There was a chair knocked over and a headset abandoned on the desk, still emitting a low hiss from an open channel. A junior analyst named Hadi Azam had been on monitoring duty in the adjacent room, eyes on the redundant stream, fingers on the log keys when his typing stopped midline. Jonah found him. He pushed open the door and saw Hadi standing perfectly still, face angled toward the wall, as if listening to something in the paint. "Hadi," Jonah said. No response. Jonah took 2 steps closer. Hadi's pupils were wide, the whites of his eyes webbed with fine red veins. He wasn't blinking. "Hadi," Jonah said again, louder. "Hey, look at me." Hadi's lips moved. At first Jonah thought he was praying. Then Hadi spoke in a voice that sounded like it had been borrowed. "It's not a name," he said. "It's an instruction." Jonah froze. "What is?" Hadi's eyes shifted, not to Jonah, not to the monitors, but to the blank wall, as if something was written there in invisible ink. "The part you keep refusing to say," Hadi murmured. "The not name, the shape word." Jonah's mouth went dry. "We didn't say anything," Jonah said. "We didn't show you anything." Hadi smiled faintly. "You argued," he said. "You kept saying it's superstition. Captain kept saying it's protocol. The doctor kept saying it's cognition." Jonah realized Hadi was repeating the conversation from the clean room, word for word. "How do you know that?" Jonah whispered. Hadi's smile widened. "Because I heard you," he said. Jonah glanced at the door behind him. The clean room was sealed. Hadi should not have heard anything. Hadi's eyes began to water, not with emotion but with strain. He seemed to be holding something back. "I can almost see it," he said, voice trembling with something like awe. "Not with my eyes, with the space behind them." Jonah backed away. "Hadi, sit down," he ordered. Hadi didn't move. The station's lights flickered once, and then Hadi's face changed, not expression alignment. Like the muscles of his cheeks were reorganizing around a new purpose. He lifted his hand and pointed at the wall. "There," he whispered. Jonah couldn't help it. His gaze followed. The wall was blank, but Jonah truly felt that if he stared long enough, he would find the line where blankness stopped being blank. He tore his eyes away. "Hadi," he said, voice tight. "Stop, you're scaring me." Hadi lowered his hand. "It's okay," he said softly. "It's not here yet. It's just close." His body shuddered once. Then his eyes rolled back. He collapsed like a marionette with cut strings. Jonah lunged forward and caught him, lowered him to the floor. Hadi's chest rose twice. Then it stopped. Jonah pressed 2 fingers to Hadi's neck. Nothing. He stared at Hadi's face, waiting for a gasp that didn't come. Then he looked up at the blank wall again and hated himself for it. He ran back to the clean room. Mira was still at the console. Selim stood too close to the screen. Inez watched both of them like a judge. Jonah burst in. "We have a casualty," he said. Inez's posture sharpened. "Who?" "Hadi," Jonah said. He's dead." Mira's hands went still. Selim's eyes widened, not with fear, but with intense interest. "How?" Selim asked. Jonah's voice cracked. "He was talking about the entity," he said, "about the not name," he said. He could almost see it. Mira's face drained. "He didn't see any visuals," she whispered. Jonah shook his head. "No, but he heard us. Or something heard us through him." Inez's voice was low. "We said spoken only," she said. "We did everything right." Selim stepped forward. "Not everything," he said. Mira turned on him. "Don't," she snapped. Selim didn't stop. "We kept treating the message like information," he said, "but it's a carrier, a mental environment. If Hadi reconstructed the concept from overheard fragments, then the trigger isn't the visualization, it's the coherence of the idea." Inez's eyes narrowed. "Say it simpler." Selim inhaled. "Once someone understands what to look for," he said, "their mind starts looking on its own." Mira stared at the translation window. The alien not name sat there like a hole in the text, a symbol cluster the engine refused to convert cleanly. Mira had avoided it instinctively, but now Hadi's last words haunted the room, not a name, an instruction. Mira scrolled up. "Show me the not name block," she said. Jonah's head snapped toward her. "Mira, we need to understand the mechanism," she said, "or we're dead anyway." Inez didn't argue. Selim leaned in. Mira highlighted the symbol cluster. The translation engine offered a warning. Unstable semantic object. Mira's fingers hovered. She clicked. The cluster expanded. It wasn't text, it was a set of relationships, an impossible geometry described as logic, a thing your mind tried to turn into a shape the moment you read it. Mira felt her throat tighten. Her vision seemed to sharpen, as if her eyes were trying to focus on something beyond the screen. She blinked. In the blink, she saw it, not clearly, but enough. A tall, narrow presence, standing in the mental space between her and the concept, like it had been waiting for her to click. Mira's hand slammed down and minimized the block. Her breath came in short bursts. Jonah grabbed her shoulder. "Mira," he hissed. "What did you see?" Mira swallowed. "I saw the beginning of it," she whispered. Selim's voice was almost gentle. "And did it see you?" he asked. Mira didn't answer. Because in the silence that followed, she felt something in the room shift, not in air, not in light, but in attention. As if the facility itself had become a pupil. Captain Inez Park did not panic. Panic was a luxury reserved for people without authority. She moved like a machine switching modes. First, isolation. She locked down the station fully. No departures, no arrivals, no external transmissions beyond encrypted bursts to a single oversight channel. Second, control. She divided the team into exposure tiers. Tier 0, anyone who had not entered the clean room or heard the message content. Tier 1, anyone who had seen translated lines but not the not name block. Tier 2, anyone who had interacted with the not name block. Tier 3, unknown. Unknown is not acceptable, Jonah muttered. Inez ignored him. She turned to Mira. "You're Tier 2, she said. "So is Dr. Voss. Reese is Tier 1. Jonah's eyes flashed. "Why am I not Tier 2? I've read the lines." "You didn't click," Inez replied. Jonah's jaw tightened. Mira stared at the floor. She could still feel the afterimage of the thing she'd almost seen, like a pressure behind her eyes. Selim looked irritated at the classification, as if it reduced something profound into bureaucracy. "Containment through ignorance," Selim said, almost amused. "That's what the aliens tried first." Inez's stare could have cut steel, and it worked for a while, she said. "We're buying time." Mira lifted her head. "Time for what?" she asked. Inez didn't hesitate to decide whether we finish translating, she said, or whether we destroy it. Jonah's breath left him. "Mira," he said quietly, "you heard her." Mira's voice was hoarse. "If we destroy it, we lose whatever countermeasure might be inside," she said. Selim's eyes brightened. "There has to be one," he murmured. "A species doesn't survive by blinding itself without leaving a better option behind." Inez shook her head. "Survival is not proof of elegance," she said. "Sometimes you live because you did the ugly thing first." Mira's hands curled into fists. Jonah stepped between them slightly. "Captain," he said, "we need more data before we decide." Inez's gaze flicked to him. "Your data point is a dead analyst," she said. "And 2 exposed researchers." Selim raised a finger. 3, he corrected. Everyone stared. Selim's expression remained calm. "I dreamed it," he said. Mira felt her stomach drop. "When?" Jonah demanded. "During the 2-hour gap," Selim said. "I closed my eyes and the not name assembled itself anyway. Not fully, but enough to recognize the contours." Mira's mouth went dry. Inez's voice went colder. "You're telling me that you can trigger exposure by imagination?" Selim nodded. "Yes," he said, "which means blindness wouldn't necessarily help, which means the alien solution was either incomplete or—" He stopped. Inez finished it for him. "Or their minds were different," she said. "Different enough that removing eyes removed the primary window." Jonah ran a hand through his hair. "Okay," he said, "so what now? We can't stop thinking. We can't stop dreaming. We can't stop being human." Inez stared at the darkened monitor. "We stopped describing it," she said. Selim let out a soft laugh. "That's adorable," he said. Inez's head snapped toward him. "Explain," Selim's smile faded. "Information wants to move," he said. "Especially information that promises a secret. You've already created the most attractive thing in the world, a forbidden concept. People will reconstruct it out of spite." Mira's voice was small. "We're the people," she said. Jonah looked at her. "What?" Mira swallowed. "We're already reconstructing it," she said. "Every time we talk about the not name, our brains try to fill the gap." She pressed 2 fingers to her temple. "I can feel it trying." Silence, then the station lights flickered again. A soft blink like a lid. Inez reached for the wall intercom. "All staff," she said. "New directive, no discussion of the Alpha Centauri signal outside authorized personnel. No speculation, no gossip, no jokes. If you have questions, you ask me." She released the button. Jonah stared at her. "That won't hold," he said. Inez's voice was flat. "It will hold long enough," she said. "If it doesn't, we escalate." Mira understood what she wasn't saying. Containment wasn't about walls. It was about language, and language had already started failing.
They tried to be careful. Careful, at Hermes, meant procedures written in ink and lived like religion. Mira kept the test plan in her head because writing it down was now its own kind of risk. Objective, determine whether visual depiction was necessary for manifestation. Method, produce a minimal abstract representation of the signal's internal geometry, stripped of the not-name block, stripped of semantic relationships, reduced to harmless mathematics. Selim argued that even abstraction could be dangerous. Jonah argued that if they did nothing, they'd die blind and ignorant. Inez approved the test on one condition. 3 observers, she said. Me, Reese, and Voss, Cade monitors remotely. No reflections, no recording devices. If anyone feels anything, test ends. Mira sat in the adjacent control booth behind one-way glass, watching the chamber through a camera feed that she deliberately kept slightly out of focus. In the chamber, a single screen displayed the abstract visualization, a rotating lattice of lines representing frequency relationships. Jonah stood with arms folded. Inez stood like a statue. Selim stood too close, as if the lines might whisper. Mira's voice came through the speaker. "Begin exposure," she said. The lattice rotated for 30 seconds. Nothing happened. Mira exhaled. Then Jonah shifted his weight. "Do you feel that?" he asked. Inez's eyes stayed on the screen. "Temperature drop," she said. Selim didn't answer. He leaned closer. Mira's heart thudded. "Step back," she ordered. Selim didn't answer. "It's not just math," Selim whispered. "It's almost what? Jonah asked. Selim's eyes widened. "Almost a face," he said. Mira's breath stopped. The lattice didn't resemble a face, not rationally, but Mira understood what he meant. It was the gesture of a thing becoming representable. Inez lifted her hand. "Test ends," she said. She reached for the power switch. The screen went black in the black for a fraction of a second. Mira saw the chamber reflected, and in the reflection something stood behind Selim. Not a person. The absence of a person shaped like one tall. Narrow edges too clean to be shadow. Selim didn't turn. He whispered, almost lovingly, "There you are." Mira slammed her fist on the intercom. "Don't," she shouted. "Don't confirm it." Jonah spun. "What?" Inez scanned the chamber. She saw nothing, but she heard Mira's voice, and she saw Selim's expression. Selim stared into the black screen like it contained a doorway. He smiled. This was the threshold. Recognitions, agreement. Selim lifted one hand slowly, reverently toward the black glass. Mira shouted again, "Stop looking!" Jonah grabbed Selim's arm. "Selim, snap out of it," he said. Selim turned his head. His gaze met Jonah's for a heartbeat. Jonah's face went blank. Mira's stomach dropped, because Jonah's eyes flicked just once past Selim's shoulder. He looked at the space where the thing had been, and something in Jonah's expression shifted. Not fear. Recognition. Mira's voice went small. "Jonah," she whispered into the intercom. "Don't." Inez moved. She stepped between Jonah and Selim, blocking their line of sight to the black screen. "Eyes down," she commanded. Jonah obeyed, slowly. Selim leaned around Inez as if she were furniture. Inez struck him a sharp backhand across the face. Selim stumbled, shocked. He blinked once and his expression cleared. He looked around, confused. "What did I?" Mira killed the camera feed. The booth went dark. Her reflection stared back at her. For the briefest instant, she thought she saw something standing behind her. She turned, nothing, but the pressure behind her eyes remained, like a fingerprint on the inside of her skull. They didn't talk about what they saw, not directly. They couldn't. Every time Mira tried to form a description, the words began to arrange themselves into a shape like language itself wanted to become a picture, so they spoke in proxies. The artifact, Jonah called it. The presence, Inez called it. The phenomenon, Selim called it, until Mira told him to stop. Selim spent hours under medical observation after the test. He was lucid, calm, and infuriatingly interested. "It responded," he said. The moment the screen went black, the sense of it increased, like it prefers the boundary condition. Mira stared at him. "You're trying to touch it," she said. Selim didn't deny it. Inez convened them in the clean room again, this time with the monitors covered and the lights raised. "Brightness is armor. The aliens list 3 options," Inez said. "Remove the window, remove description, remove sight." Jonah's eyes flicked up. "We're not doing that," he said. Inez didn't blink.
I didn't say we are, she replied. I said we understand why it worked for them. Selim's voice was quiet, because their minds were trained for non-visual cognition, he said. Remove eyes and you remove the primary pathway to stable imagery. Jonah leaned forward. But we can imagine, he said. We can dream. We can see in our heads. Selim nodded. Exactly, he said. Which means their solution may not translate. Mira's throat tightened. Hadi didn't see anything, she said. And she stopped saying. It felt like drawing a line. Inez's gaze sharpened. So what do we do? Jonah asked. Mira answered carefully. We keep translating, she said, but we do it without letting the not name become stable. No clean depiction, no shared description, no consensus. Selim's eyes brightened. Disagreement as defense, he murmured. Jonah looked sick. That's not a plan, he said. It's a plan that matches the mechanism, Mira replied. Every time someone recognizes it, it gets closer. Inez leaned in. And if we fail? She asked. Mira hesitated. The pressure behind her eyes swelled, like something listening. If she said the next part out loud, it would become more real, but command required language. If we fail, Mira said, then we do what they did. Jonah swallowed. You mean? Mira nodded. Blindness, not as tragedy. As strategy, Inez stood. Then we prepare for all contingencies, she said. Outside the clean room, somewhere in the facility, a light flickered, a soft blink, like something practicing, like something learning how to open its eyes. The station became a place where people feared their own minds. After Hadi, no one trusted silence. Silence was where your thoughts got enough room to assemble. Mira put new rules in place, unofficial rules, because Inez's rules were the kind that got written on clipboards and posted on doors. Mira's were the kind that lived in your breathing. No staring, no long pauses, no describing what you thought you saw. If you felt the pressure behind your eyes, you looked at something ordinary and named it out loud. Table, light switch, coffee stain. Reality is an anchor. Jonah called it superstition. He still did it. Selim was the worst at obeying. He kept slipping into that thoughtful quiet, head tilted as if he could hear the signal in the building's bones. Mira caught him once in the corridor, eyes unfocused. What are you doing? She demanded. Selim blinked slowly. Trying not to, he said. Trying not to what? His mouth twitched. Build the window, he answered. Mira's stomach tightened. They'd shut down all visualizations. They'd covered monitors when not in use. They'd reduced translation to audio-only cues and short semantic bursts that Mira paraphrased internally, refusing to let the raw structure bloom, and still the phenomenon spread, because the mind didn't need a screen. It needed a hint. The first Tier 0 breach happened in the cafeteria. A technician named Leanne, no clearance, no exposure, laughed at a rumor and said, "So if you see it, you die. What is it?" The universe's worst prank. 2 hours later, she was found in her quarters, sitting upright on the bed, eyes wide, hands pressed flat against her thighs as if holding herself in place. She had written a single sentence on the wall above the desk, not a drawing, not a description, a sentence. I can't stop looking behind things. Mira read the report and felt cold. Tier 0 is gone, Jonah said quietly. Inez's expression remained controlled. It means someone talked, she said. It means the concept is contagious, Selim corrected. Mira didn't look at him. She didn't want to see what his excitement had turned into. They held a meeting under new lighting overbright, clinical as if illumination could burn cognition away. Inez spoke first. From now on, she said, no one uses the words entity, God, him, it. Those are handles. Get picked up. Jonah snorted. So what do we call it? The unpleasant situation. Inez's eyes flicked to him. We call it nothing, she said. We refer to the signal only by code. The message is Alpha 1. The phenomenon is event null. Anyone who violates that disciplinary action. Mira almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was the kind of desperate control humans invented right before losing control completely. Selim raised a hand. You can't legislate thought, he said. Inez's stare was flat. No, she replied, but I can reduce the number of ways thought becomes shared. Mira listened to them argue and felt, beneath it, the low tone. Not from the vents, not from the machines, from the part of her skull where the not name had tried to assemble. Like something tapping patiently from inside the wall, That night, Mira did not sleep. She lay on the narrow bunk in the medical bay, eyes open, staring at a blank ceiling. She didn't trust dreams anymore. Dreams were internal screens. At 3:17, the lights flickered, a soft blink. Mira's heart jumped. She sat up. The room was empty. She kept her gaze on the corner where the ceiling met the wall, because corners were where your brain tried to hide things. A voice came through the intercom. "Dr. Kade," Jonah said, "you need to come to the lab now." Mira swung her feet to the floor. "What happened?" she asked. Jonah's pause was too long. "It's outside," he said. Mira felt her blood turn to ice outside. "What? The clean room?" Jonah replied. "Outside containment. People are seeing it without being exposed. It's happening faster." Mira stood in the hallway as she walked. She kept her eyes on the floor tiles and named them under her breath. Tile, tile, tile. Something in her peripheral vision seemed to stand up. She did not turn to look. It wasn't a hacker. It wasn't a spy. It wasn't a malicious sabotage by a rival nation. It was a human being making the oldest mistake in history. A technician wanted credit. A junior comms officer, Tier 0, barely aware of the urgency, had written a short status report for oversight. Unusual signal from Alpha Centauri, possible artificial origin, early translation underway. No not name, no warning lines, no mention of death, a bland sentence, safe. Except it wasn't sent through the correct encrypted channel. It went through a redundant relay that cached outgoing traffic, and a separate contractor off-site saw the cached data and asked a question. "What's this about, Alpha Centauri?" Questions, Mira realized, were needles. They punctured containment by their nature. Within 4 hours, a single phrase had escaped the station's walls. Alpha Centauri message. And in the hands of the outside world, that phrase became oxygen. The first mention appeared on a fringe forum that specialized in government conspiracies and UFO myths. Then someone reposted it to a social feed with a joke. Then a science influencer made a thread. Rumor, Deep Space Array picked up something weird, probably noise, still cool. And then someone else added a speculative comment. If it's aliens, what if it's dangerous? Like that creepypasta where if you see the monster you die. Mira watched the screenshots in the lab like she was watching a containment breach in slow motion. Jonah paced. "Pull the plug," he said. "Tell oversight to shut it down." Now Inez shook her head. "You can't shut down the internet," she said. "Then isolate us," Jonah snapped. "Stop external comms entirely." Inez's eyes were hard. "That's what caused this," she replied. "Secrecy makes people improvise." Selim spoke quietly. "This is inevitable," he said. "The message is out now. We're in the second phase." Mira didn't look away from the screen. "What second phase?" she asked. Selim's voice was almost gentle. "The phase where the phenomenon becomes culture," he said. Mira felt something tight in her chest. On the outside feeds, people were making memes. "Don't look at Alpha Centauri. Aliens sent us cursed math. New fear unlocked." They treated it like entertainment. Mira understood why. Horror was always easier when it was fictional. But the danger wasn't belief, it was reconstruction. The more people joked, the more they tried to describe the invisible thing. They built it collectively, piece by piece, in comments and replies. No single post contained the not name, but the shape of the idea began to form in the network, like a sculpture emerging from 1,000 hands. In the station, event null accelerated. Staff reported peripheral silhouettes. People flinched from dark phone screens. A security guard refused to enter a hallway because the corner feels occupied. Mira took an inventory of the reports and saw a terrifying trend. The sightings were clustering around people who had read the outside chatter, even if they hadn't read the alien message, even if they hadn't seen any data. Exposure wasn't content, exposure was attention that night. The station received a secure burst from oversight, a single instruction: stand by, federal response, team en route. Inez exhaled through her nose. "Too late," she murmured. Jonah stared at the message. "They're bringing more eyes," he said. Mira felt the pressure behind her own eyes swell, as if the world outside had just leaned closer to the doorway. They arrived like a verdict. 2 aircraft. Unmarked, a convoy of vehicles with opaque windows. People in uniforms that did not match any branch Mira recognized. They brought equipment. They brought authority. They brought the one thing Hermes had been trying to ration. Witnesses. The lead was a woman named Director Halden. Civilian clothes, military posture, voice trained to make rooms obey. She walked into the clean room without hesitation and looked at the covered monitors like she expected them to confess. "Dr. Kade," she said, "Captain Park, Dr. Voss, Reese." She didn't introduce her team. That was Power. Inez stepped forward. Containment protocol is active, she said. No direct exposure without my approval. Halden's mouth twitched. Captain, she replied. I'm not here to ask. Mira felt Jonah stiffen beside her. Halden gestured toward the sealed folder. Summarize, she said. Mira kept her words short, clipped, careful. Signal from Alpha Centauri, structured, responsive. Translation indicates a cognitohazard, an entity that manifests through recognition. Alien civilization blinded itself to starve it. We have fatalities, phenomenon spreading through secondary exposure. Halden nodded once. Good, she said. Now show me the raw. Mira's stomach dropped. We can't, she said. Halden turned to her. You can, she corrected. You choose not to. Selim spoke with respect, Director. Choosing not to is the only reason this facility still functions, he said. Halden's gaze landed on him. Dr. Voss, she said, your file says you study perception. Selim smiled faintly. I do, he replied. Then you understand, Halden said, that every unknown is a threat vector. We can't fight what we don't measure. Mira's voice was tight. You can't measure this without feeding it, she said. Halden regarded her assumption, she replied. Inez's hand shifted subtly, a warning. It's a tested mechanism, Inez said. We observed partial manifestation after minimal abstraction. Halden's eyebrows lifted. So you already exposed yourselves, she said. Mira felt heat rise. To protect everyone else, she said. Halden nodded. Excellent, she replied. Then you can do it again, under my supervision. Jonah stepped forward. No, he said. Halden looked at him like he was a faulty instrument. Engineer Reese, she said. Your job is to keep systems running, not to set policy.
Jonah's voice shook, but he didn't back down. My job is to prevent catastrophic failure, he said, and you're about to bring in a committee of people who will want to take a look like it's a lab rat. Halden's expression sharpened. This is bigger than your fear, she said. Jonah exhaled a laugh that had no humor. It's literally bigger because of our fear, he replied. Mira watched Halden's team. They stood behind her in disciplined silence, and yet Mira could feel their curiosity like heat. The room was full of unasked questions. Unasked questions were how the not name assembled. Selim spoke carefully. There may be a counterstructure in the message, he said, a pattern that induces incomprehension. We haven't reached it. Halden's head tilted. Then reach it faster, she said. We'll provide resources. Inez's eyes narrowed. And if your resources increase the body count? She asked. Halden didn't flinch. Then we manage the body count, she replied. For a moment, Mira thought she understood the alien's choice. It wasn't fear that made you rip out your eyes. It was the realization that people in power would always decide some eyes were expendable. Halden stepped closer. I'm authorizing full access, she said. You will resume translation at maximum speed. You will provide me with the raw not name block. If this entity is real, we will contain it. If it isn't, we will debunk it and restore order. Mira's hands went cold. Debunk it, as if consensus could erase the doorway. Jonah leaned toward Mira and whispered, If they force a clean depiction, it'll lock, he said. Mira nodded once. Inez stared at Halden. You're making it worse, she said. Halden's smile was thin. I'm making it official, she replied. Outside the clean room, the facility lights flickered, a soft blink. Mira felt the pressure behind her eyes answer like a pulse. Not fear, not hallucination, a greeting. Something had been waiting for more witnesses, and now it had them. Director Halden did not blink. Resume translation, she said. Mira felt the weight of the room shift. More personnel, more observers, more minds poised at the edge of the same abyss. Witnesses. She understood with terrible clarity what the aliens had meant. Each witness makes him more complete. Halden's team installed additional monitoring equipment in the clean room, biometric scanners, neural activity trackers, redundant recording arrays. They treated the signal like radiation, something measurable, something containable. Mira knew better, but she also knew they needed the rest of the message because the aliens had not ended with their self-mutilation. There was more. She reactivated the translation system under modified constraints filters in place to prevent the not name from stabilizing visually. The symbol cluster remained blurred in semantic fog, never allowed to resolve into clean geometry. Selim stood beside her, subdued but electric. Jonah hovered near the power controls. Inez positioned herself between Halden's observers and the main display. Minimal exposure, Inez said. No consensus statements, no verbal confirmations. Halden gave a thin nod. Proceed, Mira translated. The alien text shifted tone from warning to confession. We did not win.
Mira swallowed. We delayed. The room was silent except for the soft hum of equipment. He learned our darkness. A pause in the signal like a breath. He learned to wait in us. Selim's fingers twitched. Jonah closed his eyes briefly. Mira continued. The aliens described the years after their blinding. At first, manifestations decreased. The artificial windows were dismantled. The visual translation systems were destroyed. Sight became taboo. Birth rituals changed. Children born with functional visual organs were surgically altered before memory could form. They called it mercy.
But then something worse happened. Those who had once seen, those who remembered, began to dream. And in dreams, the entity adapted. It did not need photons. It needed recognition. The alien's language struggled to explain what happened next. Mira's translation resolved slowly. He spoke in our voices. A murmur rippled through Halden's team. Inez silenced it with a glare. Mira read on. The entity began appearing not as a silhouette but as familiar presences. Loved ones long dead, trusted leaders, cultural archetypes. It invited agreement, it asked to be acknowledged, and when two or more minds agreed on its shape, no matter what that shape was, it solidified. Mira's hands trembled. This wasn't a monster, it was a consensus engine. The final lines of the confession struck like cold iron. We are sending this because we are failing again. Our darkness is no longer enough. Halden leaned forward. Why send it, she asked. If it spreads through knowledge, why transmit it? Mira felt the answer before the translation rendered it. Because it is learning to leave without us. Silence, Selim whispered, almost reverently. It's using them as a stepping stone. Mira's voice was thin. They're not warning us, she said. They're telling us it's already transitioning. Jonah stared at the waveform. So this message isn't a gift, he said. Mira shook her head. It's a bridge. The lights flickered. Not once, 3 times, in rhythm. Halden's jaw tightened. Continue, she ordered. Mira obeyed, and for the first time she felt certain of one thing. The aliens had not sent a distress call. They had sent a migration notice. Hope arrived disguised as noise, buried deep in the transmission. Past the confession, past the history. Mira found a structural anomaly. It didn't resemble the knot name. It didn't attempt to resolve into geometry. It resisted resolution. When the translation engine attempted to parse it, the output fragmented. Sentences refused to stabilize. Concepts unraveled into contradictions. Selim leaned closer. What is that, he whispered. Mira's pulse quickened. It's not describing the entity, she said. It's describing how to fail to describe it. Jonah frowned. That's not helpful. It might be, Mira said. She ran a controlled test, feeding the anomaly into a simulated semantic model rather than a human-readable interface. The result was strange. The model could not form a coherent representation of the knot name when the anomaly preceded it. It stalled, it looped it, degraded into ambiguity. Selim's eyes widened. It's a cognitive fog, he said. Inez stepped closer. Plain language, Mira spoke carefully. It prevents consensus, she said. It forces the mind to disagree with itself before it can lock onto a stable image. Halden crossed her arms. And you're sure it's not another trigger? No, Mira admitted. The honesty hung in the air. They debated for an hour, risk versus necessity, exposure versus extinction. Finally, Halden made the call. Test it, she said. Controlled conditions. Mira insisted on volunteers from Tier 2 only. She would go first. Jonah protested. Inez did not. The chamber was reconfigured. No reflections, no black screens. Soft, diffuse lighting. The counter pattern was presented not visually, but as structured language, contradictions layered over each other in careful sequence. Mira stood alone in the center. She listened. The phrases washed over her. Statements that negated themselves, images that dissolved before completion. Her mind attempted to build the knot name, and failed. The pressure behind her eyes weakened. Not gone, blunted, like trying to grasp smoke. Mira exhaled slowly. It's working, she said. Selim entered next. He lasted 40 seconds before smiling. I can feel it slipping, he whispered, like it can't find purchase. Jonah followed. He emerged pale but intact. For the first time since Hetty's death, the room held something other than dread.
Possibility, Halden nodded once. Deploy it, she said, wide. Mira hesitated. Wide how? Public release, Halden replied. Embed it in the narrative. Flood the discourse with ambiguity. Selim looked almost delighted. We fight consensus with confusion, he said. Inez's expression remained grim. Confusion has consequences, she warned. Halden met her gaze. So does extinction. Within hours, coordinated messaging began. Official statements downplayed the signal, experts disagreed publicly, articles contradicted each other, the story fractured. Online speculation multiplied in incompatible directions, and for a time, event null plateaued, reports stabilized. The silhouettes thinned. Mira felt the pressure behind her eyes recede to a dull ache. It wasn't victory, but it was breathing room. Selim watched the metrics like a gambler watching dice. It doesn't like uncertainty, he murmured. Mira almost smiled. Neither do we, she said. The light stayed steady that night for the first time in days. The plateau lasted 72 hours. Then the dreams began. Not in the station. Everywhere reports surfaced globally. People describing a figure in the corner of their room. But the descriptions didn't match. For one, it was tall and faceless. For another, it looked like a parent who had died years ago. For another, it was a blurred outline shaped like grief. No consensus. The counter pattern was working. And yet, fatalities resumed, not clustered, scattered, unpredictable. Mira read the case summaries with growing horror. The victims weren't agreeing on what they saw, they were agreeing that something was there. Recognition without uniformity. Selim stared at the data. It's shifting strategy, he said. Jonas shook his head. No, he said, we're overfitting fear. Mira didn't look up. It doesn't need one shape anymore, she said. The realization settled slowly. The entity had used the aliens to learn darkness. It was using humanity to learn diversity. Different minds, different archetypes, different ways to be acknowledged. A new report flashed on the secure feed. A live streamer. Millions of viewers had broken down mid-broadcast. He stared past the camera and whispered, "You're all seeing it too, right?" The comments exploded. Some said yes, some said no, but enough said yes. The video cut abruptly. He was later found unresponsive. Mira felt sick. That's it, she said. Selim looked at her. What? It doesn't need a stable image, she said. It just needs shared acknowledgements. Jonah's face went pale. So disagreement isn't enough anymore. Inez entered the room, expression hard. We have a new problem, she said. Mira looked up. Inez's voice was steady. The counter pattern is degrading, she said. People are adapting to ambiguity. They're building personal versions that bypass it. Selim's eyes lit with terrible comprehension. It's evolving with us, he whispered. The lights flickered, not randomly in sync with Mira's pulse. She felt it clearly now, not at the edge of perception, closer, not outside the room, inside the spaces between thoughts, learning cadence, learning voice. Learning how humans invited things in, Mira closed her eyes, and for the first time she did not see a silhouette. She heard something instead, a layered murmur, familiar tones braided together. Not alien, human, practicing. Waiting for the moment, someone said, clearly and confidently, "Yes, that's it." The world did not end in fire. It dimmed across continents. People reported the same sensation, not the same image, not the same voice, but the same awareness. Something was present, not hostile, not benevolent, simply waiting to be agreed upon. Inside Hermes, the atmosphere had shifted from crisis to inevitability. Director Halden's strategy of controlled ambiguity had slowed the acceleration, but it had not stopped the curve. The entity no longer needed a single shared silhouette. It had learned plurality. It adapted to the individual, then harvested the moment of acknowledgement. Mira stood before the main console, exhausted but lucid. She had not slept more than an hour in 3 days. Jonah leaned against the wall. Pale Selim looked alive in a way that frightened her. Inez stood at the center of the room, posture rigid. "We are past mitigation," Inez said. "We are at decision." Halden folded her arms. "State the options." Mira spoke first. Option 1, total global release of the counter pattern. Flood the discourse with self-negating cognition until stable recognition becomes statistically impossible. Selim nodded. It would fracture epistemology, he said. Truth would become functionally unusable. Jonah gave a hollow laugh. so civilization collapses before the entity stabilizes. Possibly, Mira said. Halden's face did not move. Next, Inez answered. Option 2, hard blackout. Shut down visual media, suspend satellite networks, force information regression. Jonah shook his head. You can't put the internet back in a box, he said. And even if you could, people would fill the silence with imagination. Mira swallowed. Option 3, she said. No one wanted her to finish. She did anyway. Targeted sensory sacrifice, she said. Voluntary high-risk individuals, researchers, influencers, anyone who has already crossed exposure thresholds. The room went still. Halden studied her. You're suggesting blinding, she said. Mira's voice did not waver. I'm suggesting we consider what the aliens did and why it worked long enough to matter. Selim's expression darkened. You think mutilation is a strategy, he said. Mira turned to him. No, she said. I think doors can be closed. Jonah looked between them.
And what about dreams, he asked. What about memory? Mira didn't answer, because she knew the truth. Blindness would not cure it. It would only slow it. Halden spoke quietly. You're assuming the entity requires visual pathways, she said. We have evidence it doesn't. Mira nodded. Yes, she said, but we also have evidence it prefers them. Inez stepped forward. There's a fourth option, she said. They all looked at her. Finish the message, Inez said, all of it, whatever they left at the end. If they sent a migration notice, maybe they left a final instruction. Mira felt something inside her click into place. The aliens had not ended on despair. There was one more segment, compressed, sealed, never fully parsed. She turned back to the console. Then this is the choice, she said. We either blind ourselves or we look at it completely. Selim smiled faintly. Finally, he whispered. The lights flickered, once, twice, like a pulse answering. They prepared the chamber like it was a ritual. No reflections, no black surfaces. Diffuse light from every angle to eliminate corners. Biometric monitors attached to Mira's temples, wrists, neck, Jonah at the power kill switch, Inez armed. Not against the entity, but against panic. Halden's team behind reinforced glass, Selim, insisted on standing inside the chamber. Mira almost refused him. Then she understood he was already halfway through the door, the final segment of the message loaded encrypted within layers of contradiction and noise. Mira inhaled slowly. Begin, she said. The translation unfolded in her mind like a corridor. The alien's final words were not confession, they were structure. We could not destroy him. We could not hide from him. So we made him uncertain. The text shifted into something stranger. A set of recursive instructions. A pattern designed not to erase the entity but to entangle it in contradiction. If the entity required recognition, the pattern required simultaneous recognition and denial. A paradox engine. Mira felt the pressure rise. She did not look away. Selim whispered, voice trembling. It's here, he said. Mira felt it too. Not a silhouette, not a face, a density in the air, a gravitational pull in cognition. Her mind tried to stabilize it, to give it edges. She resisted. She read the final instruction aloud. See him as unseen. The words vibrated. Selim laughed softly. That's impossible, he said. Exactly, Mira replied. The chamber temperature dropped. Jonah's voice crackled through the speaker. Mira, your neural activity is spiking. She ignored him. The entity pressed against her awareness. It tried to resolve, to become singular, to become agreed upon. Mira forced her mind into contradiction. It is there. It is not there. It is shaped. It has no shape. She felt it strain. Selim gasped. I can see. Inez cut him off. Don't finish that sentence. Selim's mouth hung open. His eyes were wide. Mira realized the danger, not the entity. The confirmation if Selim declared it. If Halden's team agreed, the doorway would stabilize. Mira shouted. Disagree, the word echoed. Jonah, through the speaker, yelled. I don't see anything, Inez barked. It's empty. Halden hesitated for one fatal second. Then she said, cold and firm, there is nothing in that room. The paradox tightened. Mira felt something buckle.
The density in the air fractured. Selim screamed, not in pain but in loss. The pressure collapsed. The chamber lights steadied. Mira dropped to her knees, breathing hard. Jonah burst in. Did it? Mira shook her head. No, she said. It didn't die. She looked up slowly. It slipped. Selim stared at the empty air, tears on his cheeks. It was almost beautiful, he whispered. Mira felt a chill. That was how it would try again, not as horror, as awe.
The event did not end in the chamber. It echoed globally, reports spiked, then fractured. Some claimed a revelation. Some claimed nothing happened. Some claimed the entire phenomenon was mass hysteria. The counterpattern spread like static through culture. Conflicting narratives multiplied, no single depiction held. The entity could no longer anchor to a shared shape, but it did not vanish. It dispersed, like a fog denied a mirror. Mira stood in the observation room days later, watching feeds from around the world. Memes, debates, art, denial, belief. Disagreement had become humanity's shield. Halden approached quietly. Is it over? She asked. Mira considered the question. No, she said. It's decentralized. Selim stood at the far end of the room, staring at a blank screen. He no longer tried to describe what he'd almost seen, but sometimes Mira caught him smiling at nothing. Jonah joined her. We bought time, he said. Mira nodded. For now, Inez entered. We're scrubbing the raw files, she said. No, stable record survives. Mira felt a strange mix of grief and relief. They had not defeated it. They had denied it certainty. Humanity had weaponized doubt outside. The world continued, fractured, noisy, alive. Months later, the Alpha Centauri signal was officially classified as inconclusive, a misinterpretation, a statistical anomaly. An unfortunate cluster of psychosomatic incidents. The counterpattern survived in fragments, academic papers arguing against each other, art installations built on contradiction, cultural jokes about not looking too hard. Mira returned to the clean room one last time. The monitors were dark, the walls sterile. She stood alone in the center and closed her eyes. She let her mind drift toward the edge where the pressure had once lived. It was faint now, distant, but not gone. She understood something the aliens had not fully articulated. The entity did not hate. It did not hunger in a biological sense. It expanded through certainty, through the human desire to say, that's it, that's the truth. As long as humanity argued, as long as truth remained contested, as long as no single image won, the doorway would never fully open. Mira opened her eyes. The room was empty, but somewhere beyond sight and beyond doubt, something patient adjusted its strategy, not defeated, not victorious, watching, waiting for the day humanity decided together to see clearly.